Okay, this lesson for our Cornet Project class will present the greatest proof that demonstrates that, yes, a person who's trusted Jesus Christ for everlasting life has believed, and we unashamedly acknowledge that Jesus Christ is the one who died for our sins according to the scriptures, that he was buried and rose again on the third day according to the scriptures, and that was for our justification. So we're born again, we're born from above, we were fathered through the gospel, we simply trusted, we were persuaded by the Son, persuaded by the gospel of God, just as we've learned in this class. But then this question comes up about those who are said to have dead faith, is what it's called. And can that save them? Now, of course, we've already studied the fact that it says saved, but let's look for a moment. I think we can prove very easily that is the greatest answer and greatest proof is in Hebrews 10:24 when it said, let us always be considering one another. And the King James Bible said, let us consider one another to provoke one another into love and good works. It's into to provoke one another. It's reciprocal. It's what we do for each other. It's in a covenant relationship. Covenant love is reciprocal. So we provoke and we are being provoked. Notice that it's reciprocal. And that's into a provocation, but the provocation is of good works. Notice this, of good works. So this is the only people who can be outside of good works and it be a peril are us, because our lives were and are intended to engage these. You remember Rahab was the example in James, and then later we found that she is the mother of Boaz and she was in the genealogy of Jesus. So when she was engaged by the spies as they were entering Canaan and preparing the necessary logistics, she was a confidential informant and gave them safe passage and prevented them from their mission being thwarted. So her getting on with good works that matched the faith she had, even while she was in that condition known as harlotry, and that's what she was known for, she went on and had the life that was intended for her, which is what James was speaking of. But here we'll look and see just for a moment Romans 4:6, choris, outside. Righteousness is imputed outside of works. So it's great to be outside of works in this condition. God won't impute righteousness according to works. Romans 3:28, we're justified by faith outside works of law. So that's great. It'd be a terrible thing to suppose you could be justified out from works of law or in that condition of law. So James 2:20 mentions outside the works, outside. So when you talk about apart from works, just take this word as you've been trained in this class and use that and go and notice how great things are. So outside of works, righteousness is imputed. So we stand right. We have the righteousness of Christ imputed to us. We have the life of Christ that he lived accounted to us as though we had lived it, which we didn't. It's the just one who died for the unjust. But notice here, we can often be outside of good works, which would be dead. But we're the only ones that could be said of that. So to speak to someone that's never trusted Jesus Christ for everlasting life, to speak to someone who doesn't believe that Jesus Christ died for their sins according to the scriptures, or that Jesus Christ was buried and raised on the third day, or they don't believe that it had anything to do with them atoning for their sins, that's not really dead faith. That's called unbelief. That person has negated persuasion and disbelief. So this is the greatest answer, greatest proof. And all you have to do is take this word, that koine, and read your King James Bible in Hebrews 10:24. And why in the world are we always provoking one another into this provocation? And it's a provocation of good works. That's because we were designed to interdepend, not be solo and conduct on our own apart from the ecclesia, for example, which is for our disciple, is for discipleship, is for growing upwardly to the full measure of the stature of Christ found in the ecclesia under his headship. It's to be conformed to his image, which that ecclesia is intended and should reflect. Well, the unwillingness to be provoked into, or that is to be considered into a provocation, or as King James says, to provoke one another. It's reciprocal. I expect that. It's like iron sharpens iron. That's in the Old Testament. And brethren, know that we are here to provoke one another, heads of households. Where I pastor, we provoke one another unto the good work. For example, fathering our children, being husbands to our wives, brothers in the covenant, faithful to bear testimony of Christ, to bear our own burden, and then by doing so, able to bear one another's burden. So everything's reciprocal, but that's the best answer. So the concept that bantering out there is that the person who has faith without works isn't a believer at all. Is kind of it's back to eisegesis. It's imported into the text. So I'll include this reference to this text and I'll word it out. I'll put the King James, of course, first. I'll word it out to show. But if you notice into these words here, really help give us a diagram so that we don't get lost in all that endless dialogue and banter. And I'll also include an article where someone spoke of the faith was once alive. Well, if it was in the sphere of the good works, then that was the reference here. Is it engaging? As again, Rahab was in harlotry, and she had righteousness had been imputed, she had been justified, and now the provocation occurred, and she was provoked, and then of course now this is easily understood. So according to the Bible, a child of God, a genuine born again, the only kind we are, a person who's actually trusted the correct message of faith alone in Jesus Christ only, and to be justified out from his faithfulness, not ours, and it's his righteousness, not ours. And that's because we were persuaded by the Son, persuaded by the gospel of God, and that's the gospel of the grace of God. So we could find our faith dead more than once and need to be, as the Bible teaches, specifically, irrefutably teaches that we would interdepend and in cases codepend upon that provocation into this. So you have a blessed day, and notice the power of Koine, power of using your King James Bible and your Koine Greek, looking up words, and notice all this. But have a blessed day and enjoy this liberty of that knowledge always affords us.